Okay, I think we're streaming live now, Patrick.
It looks like it.
Okay, welcome to the Troy Planning Commission meeting for November 11th, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mr. Walke,
Here.
Mayor Odo. Here. Mrs. Early,
Here.
Mr. Titterington,
Here.
Mr. Westmeyer,
Here.
Mr. Cappers,
Here.
Mr. McGarry.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, first of all, I want to wish all the veterans out there a happy Veterans Day today. And we have our minutes from our October 28th meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions to those minutes?
I'll move for adoption of the minutes.
Is there a second? Mr. Westmeyer seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They stand accepted. Okay, the next matter on the agenda is historic district application for the demolition of 112-118 West Main Street. The applicant has requested us to keep this on the table, so unless any of the commission members want to take it off the table for some reason to discuss any aspect of it, it'll remain on the table. Hearing anything from anybody? Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then. That's the petition for the vacation of a portion of an alley located off West Franklin Street and running off West Canal Street. The staff have a report. Jill, are you taking care of that one?
I can, yeah. So the First United Methodist Church has requested a vacation of part of the alley that abuts all of the property that is owned by them. It's right here south of their 110 West Franklin Church. And it's actually west of the 126 South Cherry lot that was demoed a couple of months ago. So it's the area is 12 foot wide by 66 foot long. You can see you have a copy of the petition. Again, all the property that adjoins this 12 by 66 is owned by First United Methodist Church. And then you also see the alley vacation that the plat, the map that is shown below that. So you have that.
Have you taken a look at that access easement that's referenced on there at all?
Yes, we have.
What's that for?
We believe that it probably was, the alley honestly used to go all the way through to Franklin. And so I think that it was maybe when the plat got replat, when some of those lots got replatted and part of the alley got vacated, that it was to get out to the street. There really is no use for that any longer. It's going to stay there as part of the county requested that this alley vacation only show alley vacation and not really vacate any easements or anything like that. And so they will be coming back actually with a replat to replat all of their land together that encompasses the church and the parking lots in the former 126 South Cherry.
Okay.
And so at that point, we'll address the easements at that point, the access easements.
Okay. And I'll also note that they own a piece of property that is south of this alley vacation, but they're not asking for that portion of the alley to be vacated. Correct?
Correct. They are not, because it is, that alley can be used by the property that is west of them as well, west of the alley. And so, yeah, they are not.
Okay, very good. Any questions of staff? Okay, we've been asked to make a recommendation one way or the other to the city council. Does anybody want to make such a motion?
I'll make the recommendation that they, for approval of the vacation.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Here. Yes. Mrs. Early,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Cappers,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Walke.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the historic district application for the design of the city's new fire station. Does staff have a report?
Yes, sir, we do. Apologize for the length, but with the new build, you have a lot of materials to review. The applicant, which is obviously the city of Troy, is requesting the commission to review the proposed building, which will be the new fire station located at 110 East Canal Street. This property is Zone B3, Central Business District. The OHI form in your packet references the previous structure that was approved to be demolished. So I just included that in there for your information. The property is now a vacant lot. Proposal is the redevelopment of the property for a new fire station number 1. The building will be 17,368 square feet, a 2-story structure with the main portion of the building being front loaded towards East Canal and South Walnut Streets. Apparatus base will be set back a little bit further to provide an appropriate driveway and access onto East Canal. The design and layout of the proposed site was created by a KZF design architectural firm. This took into account the surrounding property types, architecture, property uses, and feedback from the staff. The design gives the site a new contemporary style building that relates to the surrounding architecture in the historic district instead of recreating a design or a disruption to the block. This design places the building, as I mentioned, is front loaded with a mass similar to the other 3 corners of that intersection of East Canal and South Walnut Street. We've also provided nice architectural features that reflect the previous building design, which also had stone lintels, larger mass, and a flat roof, and was also front loaded to the street, along with taking into consideration other similar sized buildings in the area and the architecture within the historic district. The site design also accounts for multiple frontages, providing design elements on all sides of the structure. This design also steps the building elevations down as it approaches the residential neighborhood to the east, along with parking and the majority of landscaping being provided on the east side to give that transition any proper buffer yard, while addressing the needs of the fire department for staffing, size, function, and vehicle turning radiuses and off-street parking. The exterior of the structure will be constructed of a brick masonry veneer in the color of Indian Full Range and a split-face concrete block base in the color of Boston Gray. The cast stone accent band on the first and second floor levels, along with the capped roof line, window headers, and lintels, along with cast stone accents of arched headers above the main entry, several first floor windows and front doors of the apparatus base on East Canal. Along with the East Canal Street elevation, we have a parapet using cast stone with bracketed cornice detail. All cast stone on the site will be smooth face in the appearance and color of the natural stone color, which is also in your packets. The rear of the building will also incorporate arched masonry detail to the rear entryway of the building, along with a balcony on the second floor with black aluminum railing to match the lighting and trim details of the building. The main and rear entry doors will all be aluminum framed with insulated glass, black in color. The service doors and secondary entrances will be aluminum framed in dark gray in color. The majority of the windows will be a fixed 1x1/1 window that will give the appearance of being double hung windows, much like a lot of the historic architecture in the downtown, with all the other remaining windows being single picture frame style windows. All the windows will be aluminum framed, insulated glass, and black in color for the trim. All the overhead apparatus bay doors will be aluminum framed. The bays facing East Canal Street, the ones on the front, will be black in color with solid panels at the top and bottom, and the remaining middle sections being glass. The rear doors will be aluminum framed, black trim with dark gray panels in the middle, panel being glass. Lighting on this site will be of 3 types. The main lights on the facade are a straight arm bracket with a bell-shaped hood for downward lighting and black in color. The secondary accent or architectural lights will be featured on the building with a wall-mounted bracket and a curved profile, providing up and down lighting on the facade of the building. These lights will also be black in color. The parking lot will have 4 pole lights, 2 along the east of the parking lot and 2 along the rear property line to provide light for the off-street parking and drive aisles on the site. These will also be black in color and use the same bell-shaped fixtures that are on the building. The entry to the building will feature a new ground sign using matching materials of the building, including the historic bell from the fire station that used to be located here at City Hall, along with the new flagpole, decorative ground lighting, and landscaping features. All the mechanical equipment will be mounted on the roof, not visible from any of the streets due to the parapets on the building. The backup generator and trash bins will also be in an enclosure that matches and screens all the generator and trash bins. The site will also have new driveway aprons, drive aisles, parking, curbing, and new sidewalks, along with a complete landscape plan to complement this site. All plans and materials, fixtures, and colors have been attached to your packet. Staff does recommend approval of proposed alterations based on these alterations are in keeping with the historic nature of the district. The proposed development is in keeping with the zoning ordinance and the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for new construction, and the alterations do not alter any of the historical or architectural features of this property.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Any questions of staff?
I didn't notice any.
I have one.
Is that something that OSHA doesn't like?
Say it again.
I didn't see any sliding pole. Is that something OSHA doesn't like?
There will be a pole in the new fire station, actually reutilizing the one that is in the current fire station number 1.
Mr. McGarry, you had a question?
Yeah, just in the literature that you wrote, it has the Secretary of Interior's, meets the Secretary of Interior's guidelines. Is that something that now is required in the city?
We mentioned the Interior or the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines within our own zoning code. The guidelines that are through the Secretary of Interior spell out a little bit more of how they want the buildings to complement rather than to replicate certain features and the designs. And that's kind of why I put that in there, is because we took that into consideration during this design.
Okay.
Mr. Watson, you indicated that the building would be front-loaded on the lot. Could you just explain to me what you mean by that?
Yes, sir. So if you do look in your packets, there is a site plan, an overall site plan. You can see there at the corner of Walnut Street and Canal Street, the building is, I'm not sure if it actually has space over. Sheet C500 at the bottom.
Okay. I think basically what you're saying, though, is that the building as it is to be constructed is closer to the street than in the middle of the lot.
Correct.
Right.
Since it's closer to the street, which is allowed in the B3 zoning district, but again, looking and taking inventory of the surrounding properties, that was also the most appropriate in our opinion.
Did you also say that the buildings on the other corners of this intersection are also front-loaded?
Yes, sir. The church across catty corner to this lot is front-loaded. The Crisis building, which is the First Place Dance Studio, which used to be also city-owned property, is front-loaded, is directly behind the sidewalk. And the residential homes and business across the street are extremely close to the sidewalks and front-loaded.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Well, I like the looks of this building. Okay, we need to make a decision concerning the historic district application that was made. Is there anyone who wants to take that on?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Mr. Westmeyer, seconded. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehrlich,
Yes.
Mr. Titterington,
Yes.
Mr. Westmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Cappers,
Yes.
Mr. McGarry,
Yes.
Mr. Wolke,
Yes.
Mayor. Yes. Unanimous.
Okay, now that it's got the historic district approval, we are going to move on to the overlay district. Staff have a report.
Yes, sir. Again, City of Troy, Ohio is requesting Planning Commission review for this proposed new site design for 110 East Canal using the downtown riverfront overlay district. As I mentioned before, this is for the 17,368 square foot fire station building as proposed. This final site design that we brought to you, it does meet most of the underlying zoning requirements for the B3 zoning district. However, we do have some sections that are not meeting that, and hence the reason why we are applying for the DRO process. The first portion of that site that does not meet is the buffer yard. This is the buffer yard along South Mulberry Street that provides the buffer between the B3 site of this property and the residential structures directly across the street. The zoning code requires a 25-foot wide buffer when commercial is adjacent from residential zoning. The request is to have a 12.5-foot reduction of this buffer yard. This reduction will not adversely affect the screening of this site from the residential district, as we are going to have the required quantity and density of landscaping as required in the code. We're just asking a reduction of the actual buffer yard and the width. The second part.
Could I stop you right there and we ask you a question as we go forward? When we're talking about a buffer yard, usually I'm more concerned with buffers between neighboring properties, but this is a buffer right to the street right away, right?
Correct. The zoning code doesn't differentiate when abutting to residential from industrial and commercial. We do allow a slight reduction in some instances, but with this being B3 directly to an R7, the ordinance directly calls out a 25-foot buffer.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Another clarification, and it's right up against a parking lot too, so it's not like we're gonna have a building right there.
Correct.
It is a parking lot.
Yes, yes. But the ordinance doesn't differentiate between the two. It just looks at the two zoning districts.
Go ahead, Mr. Watson.
The second portion of this is in the same area. The ordinance, as I mentioned, requires the buffer yard. It also requires a landscaping buffer within that buffer yard. The ordinance requires at least 15 feet of landscape planting in that buffer yard. The city's requesting a reduction in that landscape buffer yard of 2.5 feet. The proposed buffer yard that is on this plan is at 12.5 feet. Again, we don't believe this is going to provide any detriment or anything to the residential zonings across the street, as all the landscape screening and density will meet the ordinance requirements as far as height and placement and separation of the trees and bushes along that buffer yard.
Just a question, Mr. Watson. It says that the buffer is required 15 feet, but it's designed for 13.5 feet. But you said you wanted to reduce it by 2.5 feet, which would be 12.5 feet. Somebody's math is off there. What do you want the minutes to show here?
It should be 12.5.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good. Thank you.
Once again, the landscaping material will meet the standards of the ordinance, as in bushes height for headlights and all that, provide the appropriate screening for that. Any other questions on number 2? Third section is the sign setbacks. We have amended the sign. If you looked in your packet on those elevations, the sign is a little bit different than the proposed sign provided in your packet as well. Part of this is the ordinance requires a 10-foot setback from any road right of way for any ground signs. With this building being in B3, that allows a 0 setback along the front, and to provide signage for this building, we'll have to encroach that given the building is front loaded. We did amend the sign to be a little bit smaller in width and went with a little bit taller sign that will allow for the site distances to be met. There won't be any issues when you're at that intersection. So the reduction for this is going to be 5.5 feet from both the East Canal and the South Walnut Street. So the reduction will be 5.5 feet from the required 10 feet.
Okay. Hey, just for my own edification, where's the bell at now? Is it in fire station number 1?
It is actually, yes, currently at Fire Station 1.
And is that something that's going to be able to be gonged? And will that drive the neighbors crazy?
I do not believe there is anything in there that would
No,
allow it
there's
to be
no
done.
internal.
There's no internal mechanism. Okay. Any other questions concerning this item number 3? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Watson.
Number 4 is separation of off-street parking. We do have a small section along South Walnut Street and the driveway. At the back of the building, we have 1 parking space and 2 ADA handicap parking spaces and the access aisle for them, or for those 2. The ordinance requires a 10-foot separation between off-street parking and the road right-of-way. Again, due to the building being front-loaded to those East Canal and South Walnut Streets, this section does not meet that. We are asking that the setback be reduced to the 1.5 feet. All of the curbing and landscaping will be there as required. But again, with that driveway entrance there and the rear entrance to the building, that section was slightly unavoidable, and also to allow for all off-street parking to be on the site.
Any questions for this item number 4? Okay, Mr. Watson, go ahead and continue.
As there are no other review items concerning any of the utility or engineering departments, staff does recommend that, well, I'm sorry, we can't recommend anything yet. This is the first reading, so at the next scheduled meeting, Planning Commission will have to do a second reading and public hearing for this application.
Okay, no actions to be taken today concerning this, and we will accept that as the first reading for the application. Any staff have anything else to come before the meeting today?
Forum for the next meeting.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Knight?
We need to determine if you're meeting on the day before Thanksgiving.
Does staff have anything that right now that is coming up the day before Thanksgiving?
It'd be the DRO if you want to hear it.
We're going for authorization. We'd be going to council committee on November 23rd for authorization to bid on this. I don't really think.
So if we want to get this out to bid in December, we would need,
It doesn't really, yeah.
It doesn't
we would
matter.
need to have,
It doesn't matter to the bid.
And we can delay that.
It doesn't matter. to the
okay, no, we don't have anything pressing for the next meeting.
It's not like we're going to all go out and visit our families during the pandemic, I don't think. Maybe we are, I don't know.
It's true.
So
Great excuse.
if we can push it till December, that's great. Why don't we do that? Let's talk about the December meeting. At the last meeting, we talked about our comfort level on Zoom versus appearing in mass at Bravo Room. And because of the nature of the pandemic, I'd like to hear from the other commission members as to whether or not they still feel comfortable meeting in Zoom or would mind going and meeting in the Bravo Room. So who wants to speak?
Chair, I'll start. Mr. Chair, you mentioned it a little earlier. So the current emergency orders that allow non-face-to-face public meetings, that expires on December 1st. They have been talking about extending that. We have not had any action on that at the state legislature. So anything that we decide is subject to them extending that allowance past December 1st. Just want to put that out there. We are able to, schedule-wise, meet at the Bravo Room. We have been meeting face-to-face for city council meetings at the Bravo Room with adequate spacing. The only concern that we would have is if and or when, hopefully that's an if, the tavern issue comes off the table and there would be a larger crowd, but we would have to maintain that crowd according to the occupancy limits. But other than that, the Bravo Room is a lot more spacious than the council chambers for what it's worth.
What I'm hearing you say, though, is that we cannot have Zoom meetings if the emergency is not extended.
Correct.
Now, if the emergency is extended, is it the desire of the commission to continue to meet in Zoom, or would you prefer to meet in person?
I would prefer to meet in Zoom until the COVID numbers start coming down.
Okay,
I agree with that.
I would agree. We've been asked for, from our bank that we keep Zoom meetings if possible.
okay,
As a matter of general principle, I like meetings where we're together, but on the other hand, quite frankly, with a personal situation, had my wife not gotten her results about an hour ago, I would not have been able to attend an in-person meeting.
okay. Well, what I'm hearing is everybody has a preference to continue to meet in Zoom unless we can't do so because the emergency nature of the governor's order has not been extended. Is that correct?
I'm fine meeting in Zoom, but obviously with council, we're meeting at Bravo, so I'm comfortable with that. We've been doing that for a couple of months, so I'm fine either way.
Okay. Well, Sue, we'll continue meeting in Zoom if we're legally permitted to do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Until further notice.
Until further notice, of course. Okay, anything else? Mr. Titterington, do you have anything more?
No, sir.
Mayor, do you want to say anything?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue, do we have anything else that we have to entertain?
Don't think so.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Say